Okay, one box arrived very late. Before we cover this, I did pick up Men in Black 2, Men in Black 3, Tremors 5, and Mad Max. So, let's get started. I know it's a couple days late, but can't really be helped. Black Friday and probably Cyber Monday stuff really delayed. Packages. I think my brother ordered a PS4, didn't arrive until today. Hey look, Fear the Walking Dead. That's another non-anime thing. And we also had this arrive. But let's begin going through the anime. First we've got Space Brothers. It's the two brothers in space. And then of course this entire Blu-ray with the closed tab. I'm trying to think if there's any other Blu-ray under there, but the most annoying thing is this plastic is stuck to the damn tab. It's been a very frustrating week. Not only is it annoying when your package gets delayed, and obviously I would have been ordering this stuff regardless of Black Friday or Black Monday, so it seems kind of sucky that it got delayed because of that stuff. You know, it basically means you can't do anything to with them. This is set 18, Region A. Some of these have been A and B in the past, haven't they? Fairy Tail, I mean. But yeah, not only did this get delayed by 2 whole days, but this week I'm also having to deal with the apartment complex closing an hour earlier, and they don't open early enough that I could stop by before I go to work, and now means I have to leave work early if I'm going to pick up any packages. Being the same week when delivery gets delayed 2 days is like, of course, these have been annoying. This has a sticker on top. This should be collection 2. And I think I looked, and the episode count for these is 1 less than the episode count on anime sites, which means they probably did not include that one episode they want to pretend doesn't exist, which is what would have caused me to repurchase the DVD versions if they had released it, but they didn't, so I didn't. I do believe it was in the later half of this series, that is. So can we even see the episodes? See, it says there's 42, and I do believe it's 43 episodes in actuality. And also Gundam related, we got Mobile Suit Gundam Origin 2, which I imported directly from Japan instead of indirectly through Right Stuff, so I don't know if this is actually English subtitled, but let's open it up and take a peek inside. So alright, that means I'm definitely going to be putting it back in the plastic thing. A lot of plastic just to get inside this. Ow. That plastic was actually a lot harder than all the other plastics thus far, so I was almost thinking I wouldn't get through it. I don't know. We've got the disc. We've got looks like a car advertisement. Might not be. Might be. Unfortunately, this is going to be all in Japanese, so I can only appreciate the artwork, I guess. And from what I did see, it wasn't specifically whatever. Now, the older Mobile Suit Gundam, the Origin release, was in a much bigger case. What the hell did I do with it? Must be in one of those piles where I can't see it. But hey, look, we got a booklet. I think the artwork in here looks better. So that's a good thing about it. Might be a slightly more limited edition version of the release. Oops. Getting it back into the plastic is always tricky. So let's just do that because there's not much else in the way of DVDs. Oh look. Nice and quick. Here's this week's anime DVD collection update. So I did finish Eat a Kiss. It took a bit of pushing, I think, throughout almost the majority of the series. Whenever it seemed like maybe I could enjoy it, I'd always do something that would piss me off, the characters in particular. It would introduce some horrible piece of shit that you'd rather just strangle instead of watch a show about them. And at one point, EDA, I guess the guy, love interest person, I got really pissed off about him. I mean, it was real bullshit, and he never really apologized about it. And you know, that kind of goes hand in hand with the whole, he kind of fails the waiter test, which I think I talked about last time, where you know, you kind of see how people treat somebody they consider beneath them. That kind of tells you a bit more about what they kind of really are like. And this guy was just a scumbag through and through, right? That's part of the reason why I had so much trouble with this, is there wasn't even really like edges of, oh, I could hope for this. The main character, well, she had things that you could hope for and grasp onto, but then she'd do these petty, horrible little things, like, you know, she would intentionally do something that you can only really, oh, I just realized my clocks have been reset. Ugh. Annoying week. She would do petty, annoying little things, like, oh ho 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 ho, she would channel a little bit of oh ho ho Jo-sama or whatever. There were a couple times when she was a hypocrite, like telling her friends that they are, that what they're doing isn't very nice, just joining a club because of a guy. When she did that, and the anime itself points out, it's just like, how can you say something so thoughtlessly like that when you're in the midst of actually doing that, unless you're just a complete retard? And, you know, I complain a lot about it, but the reason why it is scored higher than complete garbage, it's actually within the pretty watchable range, is because there is a very big redeeming factor about it. And this is kind of the reason why I do try to push myself through shows I don't like, because I do want to understand why people think this or that about it, if there's really some saving grace. And the one to Eat a Kiss is that it is a more complete cycle. I'm not sure if I've seen any more complete. I guess I've seen them. They're very rare, but this has to do with anime in which relationships are part. There's plenty of shoujo anime along those lines, and plenty of harem anime. And if you're more familiar with the harem anime, then you probably understand it as the concept of the opposite of most harem anime setup, where there's a guy and there's his harem of girls, whether or not they like him or hate him or whatnot. But, you know, at the end of the show, the relationship between all of them is pretty much the same. Even if there's maybe little things where it's like, oh yeah, he protected this one or that one or whatever. But there's no real relationship development. And shoujos do this a lot as well. Fushigi Yugi being a really good example of they're just obsessed about this one part of the relationship, but I know others do it. Like with Fushigi Yugi, they kept going back and forth on whether or not a relationship was even possible, I guess, because they wanted it to remain in that moral unsure zone. And I think most people understand that's not actually a particularly exciting zone per se. There's some people who can get really into it, but usually look for some other redeeming quality in the anime if you're the kind of person that actually doesn't get high off of potential relationships, I guess. So lots of people like real relationships. This one explores that concept a lot better. And in that regard, you know, it's kind of annoying that the characters are also hateable, because it doesn't really feel like they grew so much as the anime decided they needed to change slightly. And I say this because it does things that you could consider character growth, but I'd argue that they start acting in ways that the viewer would think is more logical, but actually runs completely counter to the kind of person they are at their core, just because they want to proceed forward in some way. And this mostly has to do with the whole girls like guys who are projects concept or whatever. Blah blah blah. You know, I'm going all over the place. And maybe I said more about Eat a Kiss than I really wanted to, I don't know. But overall, I'm glad I watched it. I was satisfied with some aspects of it, but kind of hated the characters throughout it and didn't feel very fulfilled by what it presented as character growth. And for other people, this may actually be different, and that combined with the other thing may be good? I don't know. But yeah, that's Eat a Kiss. So I decided to watch Dragonar Academy after that, and well, I think it falls into the category of good ideas, but didn't really know what it wanted to do with them, I guess. But while I say it's in that category, I think it was probably at the most edge of that, where it had ideas and it actually kind of had a vague idea of what it wanted to do, but I think it just kind of lacks a lot of draw to a lot of people, because it doesn't give them something in particular to focus on. I think, I mean, a real good example of just how this, at least this season or anime or whatever, how this was like that. Obviously, you know, it's got a more of a shonen or for guys sort of angle to it. So of course, you know, there's some combat aspects to it, and you kind of understand that there's a final battle, and it's kind of interesting because in that final battle of this season, series, whatever, all the characters show up for it, but it doesn't really feel like most of them really do anything. It was only like one or two, and kind of wondering if what they were doing was necessarily helpful. I mean, the best example was one person who just showed up, and I don't remember if she did anything other than just show up and be on the streets or something like that. Not that I think there's anything she definitely could have done, but it's sort of just, that's kind of what the show did. But again, you know, it's rated kind of harshly, so I guess most people may not agree with this. I thought it wasn't too bad. It's got things like that through it, and there's a lack of, oh, this is the element I should focus on, because it's kind of there, but it isn't prominent. And really the biggest flaw in that regard is they really should have been stressing the main characters quite a bit more. They already established the main character has a strange ability. And his strange ability is interesting. It kind of reminds me of Infinite Stratos, I think it was. Or is that the one with the ship? Stratos is... Okay, the one with the guy who could pilot the mechas that only girls could. Because apparently I am forgetting names at the moment. So, our main character kind of has a power sort of like that established, but he also has a special partner, I guess, is how I will describe it. I'm trying to remember the exact word they used, but partner is the right concept. And I think they should have been emphasizing that sort of thing a lot more, but it was kind of very mellow in that regard. Where, like, okay, people already kind of understood him and his reputation, kind of reacted to his odd powers, and they weren't that spectacularly weird, but, you know, there could have been a little more reaction to that concept in general. But then there should have been a lot of reaction to his partner because she was really unique, special, and strange, and the kind of thing that should have had people confused, questioning their reality sort of thing. So that's a really good example where they should have focused a bit more on that, but it's like they had that piece there and some things would happen related to it, but the anime didn't really want to establish anything really solid in that regard, I guess. And I don't know if this is a problem with the original source material or the implementation of it. It's just, it is what it is. And, oh yes, the tentacle thing, I can understand why some people told me that they're not sure why I went with it. Because it's prominent, but only because it's like, it feels like a one-trick pony sort of thing that just comes up a couple of times. Like, you kind of feel that's something it's very intentionally trying to shove at us. It's not even giving us a really good reason why characters just get wrapped up in tentacles the 3 or 4 times it happens. It just sort of does because it's a convenient... people need to be immobilized and we need an excuse to start dissolving clothing and showing more body parts or something like that. So, it's very strange, but, you know, you kind of... It doesn't seem to me like the kind of series that you should be going into with super high expectations anyways, because even without the tentacles... Okay, I guess that's tentacles. Even without the tentacles, you know, when you still have things like this, you kind of know where the anime stands until it surprises you otherwise, I guess. And I started watching Dramatical Murder. I watched 1 episode, and it's really tricky to grasp what I should be caring about. Something mysterious kind of happened, but it doesn't feel like there's good context for us understanding why we should be amazed. And this is just, literally, I've only watched the first episode, and they introduced a lot of characters. I'm not sure that any of the characters necessarily jump out to me that I attach to and say, oh yeah, this character, I want to see more of them or something like that. They look neat, but it's hard to say that I necessarily care. And part of that could be that I've only watched the first episode and I've watched so many anime that, you know, it can be tricky to attach to characters. So by default, I kind of attach to the main character, and I'm curious, but it's kind of hard to say, because I think I have a vague idea what happened in the first episode, but it's a surprise for something that's kind of still alien to us, that the anime didn't really introduce to us all that well, and so it's kind of hard to be excited that it happened. Now, I would have watched a lot more episodes. In fact, I could have even been finished by now, but I've been kind of zombieing out a bit the past couple of days. You know, like I said, it's a stressful week. But, you know, it's kind of hard to say. Because I think I have a vague idea what happened in the first episode, but But I guess I should probably transition to this final clip to talk about that stuff. Basically, you know, what I've been doing otherwise. I know I've been kind of scratching my head and thinking about Coraline a bit. It's been a while since I last watched it. I watched it again. Didn't exactly remember how certain special effects were done. Remembered them wrong, but there's some neat, interesting things in there. But I was mostly watching it, I guess, because of the antagonist, who I don't want to talk about too much, because if you've not watched it, I don't want you to spoil it. But they're kind of fascinating, because they're this really supernatural, mysterious entity, but at the same time, there's something very plainly human about its actions. And, you know, that's an interesting contrast, I guess, to see in one place. The other thing I did was I watched Tremors 5, you know, this thing, and I guess it was okay. I think the first two are still the classics, so there's no surprise there. It's mostly a question of what you think of this compared to everything else. The TV series is kind of a completely different feeling altogether. I mean, it's a TV series, so it has a kind of different goal, and in terms of where it was going, I actually thought the TV series was pretty good, especially the Mixmaster stuff, you know, because graboids are graboids, you know, but they need other ideas, and Mixmaster, I think, gave you interesting things, especially in the presence of graboids. You know, you just kind of had monster things in real life sort of stuff all over the place. So, you know, series was good, but that just leaves comparison to movies 3 and 4. And I think I'm a little different from other people in that I kind of like movie 4 better than 3. I think I've mentioned this a long time ago when I first watched them, but 3 was just kind of like, the concept of the ass blaster is amusing, but it feels pretty strange. Like, I guess part of that is, when you get down to it, they weren't that lethal. It's like graboids lethal, shriekers lethal, ass blasters maybe lethal, but you know, I just refreshed myself going through the movies on that. One guy, he didn't die because an ass blaster mauled him to death. He died because it almost did, and he fell off a cliff. You know, they just weren't dangerous. And at least in this, you know, they introduce dangerous creatures. People die, or something like that. But it feels like it's getting close to the needing to be showy. And maybe that's okay, because I think the more showy version of the creatures that it came up with works kind of fine for just giving you something that's supposed to be a little campy, but it's not super campy. In fact, it feels less campy than what I remember of Tremors 3. The only thing about Tremors 3 I really remember not feeling too campy was the scene at the very beginning with Bert and the Shriekers. And I guess part of the mentioning Bert, he's part of the reason I watch it, because, you know, same actor, same character, he's still there, so I feel like they're not necessarily undermining the series by coming out with what may have came out straight to DVD, I'm not sure, but, you know, if they had introduced some other character and it's like, oh yeah, this is Bert, you remember him, right? He wasn't this actor, but it's the same character, and you know, sometimes that just doesn't work out so well, right? So, and I guess when I was talking about 4, I guess 4 was kind of back to the original concept, just kind of changing the nature of the danger up a bit without kind of changing the underlying concept. It's like They didn't change the graboids. They just changed the situation under which people encountered them. Because, you know, with movies like this, you need to come up with a good reason why Burt Gummer doesn't come with every single weapon under the sun, right? This one actually had a pretty interesting setup in that regard. But, yeah, I don't know. I'm talking a bit about it. Weird stuff. I liked 4 because I kind of felt like it was designed with that, and it had more of a story and a flow and a goal to it, I guess. You know, sort of like with the first movie, you had the goal of, oh, these characters discover something and it's dangerous, and how do they survive. In the second one, you're like, okay, these characters know how to handle it. Oh, but what happens when life throws a curveball at them and now they need to figure things out? Well, you know, kind of still works out. Third one, it didn't even really feel like that per se. I guess part of the issue is the third one might have just been intended to set up the TV series. I don't know. I did also poke around Men in Black 1 and 2 again, because I haven't seen those in a long time. And maybe, I guess it's preparation for whenever I decide to watch Men in Black 3. But I don't have a whole lot of priority in that regard because I can't think of why. I don't know. I probably shouldn't bore y'all to it by just sitting here thinking, doing nothing. In fact, what else is there to do? Well, I guess we can pray that next week's anime DVDs get delivered on time. That there isn't a Cyber Monday and a Black Friday. You know, those shouldn't mess with shipping too much, hopefully. So, y'all have a nice week. Or a nice half week.